Take Podcast. It's the only podcast in the entire world that A, is coronavirus free, and B, is a complete shit show. I am Kieran, and with me is my co-host, my CFO. It is Tet.
Kieran, how are you, buddy? It's nice for you to do the intro. It's good. I like it. Something different.
It's
Something
very good.
different. You know?
It is different. How am I, you ask? Day 3 of keto. And
I'm proud.
Right now I've got to take the biggest fart. I won't, because it's going to poison you in this studio.
Okay.
That's how I am at the moment. That is how I am.
It could. The good thing is, or the bad thing is, it could be worse. We could both be doing keto like we were a while ago.
It could be the keto shits.
Oh, the keto shits.
So the keto shits are, you need a toilet nearby if you have that.
That's
good.
good.
You change your diet.
Thank goodness you're working from home. That's all I can say.
Thank goodness there's
Pour
two toilets
your housemates
in the house.
Oh,
That's- that's it. Life's over. We're done for the rest of the year. The government has said no more.
That's it.
That's it. Forget what you're doing. Second wave's here in Australia.
It's a second wave, and it's 8 people. It's like, I think I've said this to many people before. The initial narrative was that we want to ease the pain of the coronavirus on the hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
And now, over time, it's subtly changed to we don't want any more cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, those are two very, very different things.
From what I've heard is that they are a little bit worried because it could inflare and it could be harder to protect the healthcare system. So there's a bit of give and take. But look, regardless of that...
8 people over... How many hospitals do we have in Melbourne?
Look, can we not get bogged down?
At least 8. Get one each. Share it around. Share the coronavirus around. What can I say?
Please don't.
Well...
I don't
Herd immunity. I don't know. We're going to get a scientist in here to talk about that. But today, we're not going to be talking about science.
I just want to put this in context.
Okay.
I get a text message from you. I get a number of text messages in the space of a minute. But the thing that pops up in my phone was seriously ... and then you'd obviously put a space and then communicated whatever.
Yeah.
All I saw was like 5 text messages with seriously, and I thought, what the fuck have I fucked up?
No.
What have I stuffed up?
No. Do you want me to read them out? Do you want me to read them out? Here we go. Where are they? Here. Okay. I just said, I sent you a link to a certain podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, on Sunday, can we review this show? The latest episode up and about the police. Because our socialist friend loves it and they're fucking insane. And I sent you another link. I said, seriously? You need to get them on our show so we can dissect them like we do with all our other guests. And then you said, okie dokie, have a second. I'll have a listen to it tomorrow. And then I said, I've listened to it a second time. Holy shit, they're insane. And then 2 hours later, I get, oh my god, they are insane.
And at that point that I texted you, I had to stop.
Yeah.
I stopped then and there because I was getting really fucking angry. Really fucking angry. So we're going to have a bit of fun today.
We are going to have a bit of fun. So this is a bit of a different type of episode. When we do review podcasts, we usually like take clips and this and that. And I don't think... I thought we would. I thought we'd... initially, I'm like, we'll get clips. We'll go through the clips and we'll talk about it all. But the more I listen to it, I wanted to clip so much and like talk about each point slowly. I was like, no, I don't think we can do that. I think we have to just go through it as the episode goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to you when you came into the house, I think this may be a 2 or 3 parter.
I definitely think this is a 2 or 3 parter.
So if this is long and annoying in this, maybe we'll break it up over next week we'll do a regular episode and back to this. Gives us a bit more time to research and this and that. Cause
I'll do an Instagram poll because I figured that out.
Yeah, that's good.
Did you see the Instagram
I saw an
poll?
Instagram
No
poll.
one answered.
Good.
No one. But I figured out how to do an Instagram poll.
I'm very proud of you.
So I'll Instagram poll it.
Ah. Very
right?
good.
And then people can tell us on the Instagram
Or maybe...
whether they want a regular episode
Yeah.
or whether they want to continue with part 2.
And if no one answers, we'll just do what we want.
Or I might answer, and you might answer.
What do we want? But Kieran,
Yeah.
I sent you a...
Were you proud of my Instagram
It was
post?
fantastic. I'm very proud of
thank
you.
you.
Very proud of you. So Kieran, we haven't told anybody what this is about.
No.
So this is a podcast called Red Flag. Red Flag Podcast. And it's a podcast an Australian podcast. This is like the first time, other than reviewing our own show, we're reviewing an Australian podcast. Which is great. But it's a socialist / Marxist podcast. And they've decided to take on the very big topic. I think big's the only word I can really use for that.
Okay.
A big topic of the police with the current political climate and the potential to defund, abolish, reform, a whole bunch of words. But the way that they talk about it and the way that they present it was the most insane. You know, what's it called? Billy Madison at the end there. That guy's like, what you just said, it was so incoherent. Everyone in this room is now dumber from listening to it. But I never had such a, like, apart from our regular guys that we love with podcast wise, like, we love those podcasts. Like, we love these podcasts.
Any podcast that we've shit on or ripped on,
yeah.
we love.
We love, that's right. We love, like, you know, we love Karaoke Big E and this and that, with all the podcasts that we've been on and this and that. We love them heaps. But we loved this for the opposite reasons of why we loved everything else. Because this was, look, Rob was insane.
Yeah.
But at least he had a point.
Yes. Yeah.
He was trying to sell his book.
And fair enough. Good on him.
That's fine. That's fine.
Why he's multiple books.
But these people here, they talk for 50 minutes about this thing. And I've never heard people spew so many wrong things that are so easily debunked by even common sense or common knowledge or just an assumption that you could make about a topic just by hearing about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else to say to that, but should we just click play?
Oh, let's just click play and go through it.
I'm just going to click play the show. We're just going to stop it whenever you want and whenever I want, and we'll just discuss it. Again, this is a 50-minute show. I don't think we're going to get past the 20-minute mark with how much shit that they say. But before that, I think I want to give people a taste of the show. And one thing was, I went through properly the first 25 minutes of this show. And what I noticed more than anything else was that these guys have done a lot of podcasts. They've done like at least 30 shows, I think.
Yeah.
And even after 30 shows, like I went back and listened to our 30th show just to see how we were. And we were pretty good.
See, what?
We could converse. We would like...
I was saying to someone else the other day, I said, I feel like our podcast is now good.
Yes.
I'm not going to say it's great just yet because of high expectations.
High expectations.
Right. But I said, we're pretty good.
Well, I think that the fact that we go back and forth... There's not many...
we know the chemistry. We know the yada, yada, yadas.
Exactly right. We can bounce off each other, but we're also having fun. And it never... I feel like it never comes off that we're trying to just read off a screen or read off our notes. Even when we're interviewing people and all that. It's just like, this is in the moment and we're having fun. Like Joe Rogan, he just sort of pounds through. He doesn't have things in front of him.
That fucking frustrates me when someone reads off their notes. Because A, it sounds like this... let me just read off the notes.
Please
here.
do.
Hello and welcome to the We Only Do One Take podcast.
No
It's
energy.
the only podcast in the world.
That is.
A complete... yeah.
So,
it's just... yeah.
but none of these...
Whereas my point of view is, write down some notes. Make sure you interrupt your co-host every now and then. Because that's really important, right? Set them up for a joke.
And buy a pop filter. So this is a clip that I put together. So in the first 25 minutes of the show, I put together this clip.
Really, same for the first time, many people and many people listening to this podcast. What sort of led to the first?
And so Robert Peel, essentially, the last thing,
I mean, I've wandered around, and why would they? Is actually there really? Yeah, as a tool.
You can be really shit at a podcast, but if you can
really,
edit it out,
one of the key.
This.
Yeah.
Kinda,
you make your... Because when we did our first podcast...
we edited the shit out of it.
There was lots of pauses between you and I.
I've got another minute of this. I have to stop it.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry. But you're absolutely right. The first episode of our podcast, I'll say the first 10 to 15, there was lots of dead space, long pauses, lots of likes, all that sort of stuff, all those crutch words. And that's fine. Like, you're going to do that. We still do that today, you know? But the difference is that we can go, you know what? We can shorten that little phrase. We can get rid of that we can get rid of that pop filter sound.
Yeah, or every now and then we bump the mic and I would bump the mic out.
Exactly right. Little things like that just make the sound more pleasing to the audience. But I have, apart from pulling those clips all together, I have not done anything to the sound. And it feels like they are recording in an empty car park. But shall we go to the actual episode?
All right, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We are going to support podcasts.
Absolutely.
And we're going to film, because my father is now retired. He's starting his cooking show from mother to son. But we will film how to set up a podcast.
Okay.
Right, how to set up a podcast with what mics we have, how we edit.
Sure.
How you get the chemistry, yada, yada, yada.
You get real drunk at Eagle Bar. We've got to start this, because otherwise we'll be talking for 12 minutes. And
we have been told that A, we can talk a lot of shit. Right. And B, most people, this is background.
This is good.
Yeah. Anyway, let's do it.
Let's give it a crack. So this is Red Flag Radio, episode 34.
34.
Dear comrades and friends, I hope
Obviously they didn't write this. Real podcasts write their own theme tunes.
Welcome to Red Flag Radio. We're recording the show on Indigenous land that was stolen, never ceded, that always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you to our Patreon supporters who continue to keep financially donating to the show. We appreciate it. And if anyone else wants to join, those people...
Why is this part of the show for this woman introducing the show so hard?
Yeah, it should just be...
34 episodes in, you should be able to go, this is a podcast we're doing on Aboriginal land. This is our Patreon account. Support us. We really appreciate it. On with the show.
Yeah.
Even I did it, and I'm not even on their show.
Yeah, let me just do it.
Please do.
Welcome to the Red Flag podcast. This is Indigenous land, and we pay our respects to past, present, and emerging elders. And if you'd like to follow us on Patreon, give us a click, and thank you to all our members. This week, we have on the show... There you go, see? Done.
That was amazing. We didn't even try. And I had a look at their podcast on Patreon, and they get $349 a month from their Patreonies, which is great.
That's more than us.
That's more than us. Oh, fantastic. But you know what? For $349 a month, you know what you can do?
Right.
You can pay someone to edit.
Yeah, and, well, hang on, they're socialists.
Oh, yes.
So, but I would be saying, send it over to someone overseas.
Yeah.
Pay them to edit.
That's it.
Yeah.
Save yourself some money. Oh, here we go.
Down at patreon.com/Red Flag Radio.
Actually, how does that work? Pause for a sec. Socialists, but they're getting money. I thought the socialists were against money.
I don't know. Look, I'm not going to go...
This is why we need I'm trying to get a socialist on this podcast.
Get one on the show. Get him on the show.
All right.
Really helps us out with what we're able to do and expand the reach of Red Flag Radio to a wider audience as well. And that seems pretty important at the moment because there's a massive uprising happening in the centre of world capitalism in the United States. That was sparked, obviously.
The
Now-
center of world capitalism, the United States. I don't think that's right.
No. And remember, the United States is what, 300 million?
Yeah.
And how many people are protesting?
A fraction of a fraction.
Yeah.
You know, out of a whole world of 7 billion people, where I would say 90 to 95% of them live in capitalistic worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, China is 1 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really communist because they make money.
Yeah.
I don't think. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's continue.
By the racist police murder of George Floyd, and has led to a whole revival of discussion that probably would have seemed unimaginable just a few weeks ago about what.
Do you follow a Facebook group called Those Are Certainly Words?
No.
Okay, it's a really great Facebook group where people take pictures of signs and emails they get.
Yeah.
And they're sentences or they're signs, and there's definitely words on them, but they don't make sense whatsoever.
Oh my God, I got it.
What she said was, those are all certainly words.
As a society, I guess, about the police. And the debates are now at the level of, do you want to defund the police? Do you want to disband the police? Do you want to abolish the police? And these are, editorials, columns in the news.
So what I find very interesting about this, when I listen to this podcast, it sounded like they really wanted to talk about Indigenous Australians. And
It started off like that.
Yeah, but then they quickly go to America, and America's issues are very different to the Australian issues. And when you sort of look at
Well,
I've had a few conversations this week, and I've really tried to avoid Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, me too.
Right, but my conversation with everyone this week is we need to get to the root cause or causes, not the symptoms.
Yeah. But even the way she was describing it there was the discussion now is only defund, abandon or abolish the police. I'm like, I guarantee you there's more conversations than just those 3 options.
Uh-huh.
Like, those are one of 3 of multiple options. But you're only focusing on those 3 because those are the ones that you think suit you the best. But later on, they contradict this completely.
Yeah. And once again, this is I don't know much about America, but the American police system is so different to the Australian police system.
Correct.
Like, they've got their county and their sheriffs in that county, which are funded. We've just got our state and federal police.
That's it.
That's all we have. We don't. Our councils don't have police.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very, it's a much,
So they're saying, like, this is the thing that really frustrated me. Like, you're saying all this stuff about America, but you don't, and then you try to apply it to Australia, but you just don't know that they're so
two different worlds. Yeah, exactly right. Well, let's see how, let's keep it going.
I even saw an article on news.com.au, which was about the difference between defunding and abolishing the police, which is a Murdoch news website, and I never thought that would happen, and that's where we are. So people are also thinking then about and discussing for the first time, many people listening to this podcast,
Those are certainly all words.
about the history of their police, kind of what the role of the police is in society. And so that's what we're going to be talking about.
Okay, so they say something there. It's like many people are asking, how did the police start and what's the role of the police? Now, it doesn't matter what the role was initially. It's about what they are today.
I heard this point, and I was thinking the exact same thing of psychology. Freud is the father of psychology.
Well, they talk about
Right.
about phrenology later
I
on.
know.
And I was like blowing my head off.
And I was like, yes, Freud is the father of psychology. What a lot of Freud said, we do not use in contemporary psychology. And that's the same thing I was thinking. I'm like, no, it's fine to talk about the history of police, but it's what's going on now.
Yeah. In the last 10 years of policing is infinitely different to the 10 years prior to that. you know. And they talk about a whole bunch of fun stuff, but that brought up, they're like, oh, the history of policing, that means there must be the same now. I'm like, well, no, that's wrong. That's like saying when you were a baby and you were shitting yourself and you had to get fed by your mother, that you still, well, they're socialists, so maybe they are doing that. But it doesn't mean you're still the same. You know, anyway, let's keep going.
On this episode, we
I had to notice as well, like, just a reminder, the police in basically every country is government funded.
Yeah, which is taxpayers.
Which is taxpayers'
funded.
money, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a government function. And under socialism, they want more government. So I don't understand why they want to abolish something that's a government-funded item. Anyway, that's a different story, and they don't even go into that.
friends of Red Flag Radio now, Emma Norton and Luca Tavant from Sydney and Melbourne respectively. Welcome back to Red Flag Radio. Let's jump straight in with the history of the police. So, Luca, why don't we start with you?
So I know the history of the police. They were a three-piece band from from England, and Sting was the bass player, and he wrote a lot of the songs, but Stuart Copeland actually went on and wrote the music for the Spyro the Dragon game. So there you go. That's a bit of the history of the police.
Thank you for educating me
That's
there.
all right. It's very good. The guitar player is very good. A lot of chorus pedal.
What sort of led to the first development of the police? Where did this idea come from? How did it happen?
Yeah, well, I think to a lot of people, it seems like today that the police have been around, you know, from time immemorial since the dawn of humanity. But it's actually, looking back at the history, it's very interesting because the police are a very modern invention, I think. And the police force, as we kind of know it today, I think began to take shape as a result of a series of processes that were really about setting up capitalism as the system that's kind of come to dominate our lives. And you can kind of pinpoint, I think,
All right,
three
pause there. I just have to say, capitalism is just an evolution
Yes.
that's just happened over time. It's not an invention. It's just something that,
Yeah, we didn't just go one day, we are capitalists now.
yeah, it's I'm providing value.
Yeah. My value is perceived by everybody else
Yeah.
as more valuable than somebody else's value.
And you can provide something of value to me, so we'll barter in exchange.
So two of your skills, two lengths of your skill is worth one of mine because of the complexity of it, or the education level, or the risk factor.
Yeah.
That's why
I'll give you 30 chickens and you give me a pig.
That's right, because that's what we decided as equal.
Yeah.
It's not, well, you got 30 chickens, I'll give you 30 pigs. That's not an equal trade at all. Very good for you, though.
No.
But they talk about the start of the police, how it's a very modern invention. And now, when I think modern invention, I think like in the last 50 years.
Yeah, right. So I was sort of going modern industrial age onwards, depending on the context that it's
Yeah.
saying in, right? Yeah.
But the police have been around since Romans, the Greeks, and most likely Egyptians.
Egyptians, yeah.
You know, just because it wasn't recorded like that, like the primary thing of pursuing law and order on behalf of the people was definitely something that occurred. I mean, even in the Greek and Roman times, they had courts.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't tell me there wasn't law enforcement
Yeah.
doing the job on behalf of the government
Or the king or the queen.
or the people.
Yeah.
You know, to do that sort of stuff. Very sneaky way of saying it's like a modern invention, putting it in the minds of the people listening to this that it could only be like 50 years old.
places where the cops start to emerge as an institution. So the first one, interestingly, actually is with the kind of massive expansion.
Okay, stop smacking your the chops. Just stop it. Or edit it out. Or buy a pop filter.
In South, which
Have a drink.
was, I think a lot of people would know, a very essential process for the establishment of capitalism. The cotton fields picked by slaves were what fueled the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, this has got me.
Yeah.
The Industrial Revolution was the transfer from using people to pick fruit and doing manual labor to changing that over to machinery.
All right, I've got to go back here. Wealth was created when we could start farming.
Yeah.
Because farming meant we could store things,
Yeah.
right? So that's where, really, when you think about it, before we had farming, we were hunter and gatherers. And we might trade, I might come across another tribe and we've got 30 chickens and we really want a pig.
Yeah.
And we come to that exchange and off we go again. And then farming came along. And then we could go, oh, wow, we can keep all these cows and we can breed these cows and I can now trade these cows for and this milk for, oh, look, you've put together wheat and whatever. And so that was sort of the first form of wealth. And then, as you rightly say, after that, we then had this industrial revolution where we then started using machinery.
Look, I'm not saying the slavery probably didn't contribute a big part
Oh, yeah.
to that. But what I'm saying is, slavery did not fund. Let's go back to what he said. I can't remember exactly what he said, but
and made industrial capitalism a system that's kind of come to dominate our lives. And you can kind of pinpoint, I think, three main places where the cops start to emerge as an institution. So the first one, interestingly, actually, is with the kind of massive expansion of slavery in the American South, which was, I think a lot of people would know, a very essential process for the establishment of capitalism. The cotton fields picked by slaves were what fueled the Industrial Revolution.
it didn't really fuel the Industrial Revolution. In fact, that was superseded by the Industrial Revolution. Because now not only did you not have to keep a person in line, or 100 slaves in line, with 10 blokes that you privately owned to keep them in line, and feed these slaves, but now you can just tell them all to fuck off, and get a machine, and hire one bloke to do it. And in fact, you could hire those 10 blokes that were keeping the black people or the slaves at your property. You could just put them on tractors and have 10 times the amount of that crossover period into the Industrial Revolution caused them to have less slaves. And obviously, apartheid and, not apartheid, what's it called? The Civil War and all that sort of stuff obviously helped that as well. But I don't think...
But also in the American history, and if someone knows and wants to fact check this, go right ahead. But it was the South versus the North. The North didn't have... went into slavery. The South...
Well, the North still had slaves.
Yeah.
But the amount...
It was different. And then you ended up having that civil war that was fought over slavery.
The Civil War was not fought over slavery.
Oh, but there was a slavery war or something. The president, who was the president that won it?
The Civil War wasn't the Civil War was mostly fought over taxation, because one, was more aligned with the...
I'm not doing a very good job here with the facts that I'm bringing to the podcast.
Let's keep going.
I'm at the same level of the red flag.
I was going to say, at least we're not going, we're the experts, but we're just going, gee, I think there's some more into this than this very large, broad stroke of what they've said.
And made industrial capitalism a possibility. The cops in the United States actually emerged out of slave patrols, who essentially their role was to, they were kind of posses, gangs formed of people, vigilantes, who would track down and return escaped slaves to their owners to kind of keep that system of human property intact. The second place where they start to emerge is...
Okay. I could not find any piece of literature...
Ditto.
...that said, as soon as these, what they call slave patrols ended, they were somehow converted into the modern, or a police type unit on behalf of the government. Because I'm pretty sure, from what I could read, the slave patrols were owned by private organizations.
Private organizations, yeah.
Yeah, so I would highly doubt the government will go, let's hire these ex-slave patrol people to become our police force. I couldn't find any information. A Red Flag podcast, if you could get us something, I'd read it. Mm-hmm. And I want to double check your sources. And because I would double check my own sources. 2, I don't think it's right. But we're about to do the second point of where the police came from. So far, he said that like those slave guys, like the slave, what's it called? The slave patrols became cops, which I couldn't find as being true.
The British colonisation of Ireland, and obviously the establishment of colonies for some of the first capitalist powers, is a really crucial process, again, for creating a world market and establishing their supremacy over the rest of the world. And in Ireland, Ireland's occupied initially by the British Army, but they find that just, an army is good for invading a country, but for managing a population that you want to oppress and exploit, an army occupation over the long term is not a very sustainable thing. Really, all soldiers are good at is killing people. And so the Royal Ulster Constabulary was the first kind of modern police force, which was invented by Robert Peel. People would know Robert Peel, the Bobbies, as they call them in Britain. The British police are named for him. He established them as a new type of institution that was actually essentially organised to suppress and coerce an occupied population over the long term by surveilling communities, by being able to deal out violence against people that rose up and preemptively kind of nip in the bud any uprisings that might be a result of the occupation. The last thing was...
Okay, so...
The ums are killing me.
Sorry?
The ums are killing me.
It's terrible, isn't it? It's absolutely terrible. There was a lot in this, and a lot of it was wrong. So all he had to do was give us a timeline of events. If you're talking about history, a good thing to do for people to understand what you're talking about is give us years and dates. And just like all women, these people are really bad at times and measuring things. So, can I give you some history that I could find very easily on Wikipedia?
And the other thing that would really help, this is just my suggestion.
Please.
Can you just give us the quick 45-second or a minute
Elevator pitch,
and then so I know where you're going to take this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then break it down for me.
Yes.
Give me the elevator pitch and then break it down.
Okay. So the colonization by Europe, by the UK, British,
the Brits.
in Ireland, happened in the 1600s by King Henry VIII. Now,
yes.
Then he said something called the Royal Ulster Constabulary, and he said that happened at the same sort of time. Now, the colonization happened in 1600s.
1600, yep.
The RUC, came about in 1922. All
right, so that's a few centuries.
That's a bit later on.
Yeah.
And then he said it was created by that was created by Robert Peel, who was the British Prime Minister and an economist and this and that. And I find that also very hard to believe because he died in 1850. So none of it was right. But they did that. Yes, Robert Peel actually did put together the one of the first, or what we call the Metropolitan Police Force within London. And he had 3 basic principles.
Yeah.
And that was to smash the heads in of all black and other No, of course it wasn't. It was that every police officer gets a number for accountability.
That sounds good.
Yeah. The police are not measured on how many people they arrest, but they're judged on how little crime there actually is in the city.
Yeah.
Which, again, makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
You know? And the police are the public, and the public are the police. Because a regular Joe could walk off the street and go, I want to become a police, be trained and be part of that community. But as soon as he takes off his uniform, he goes back to being a public person. Those are pretty good fucking principles to have.
Yeah.
That I would say that even our police force probably still has.
I was going to say, I've never really had a run-in. I've been the drink driving testing thingamajigs, breathalyzers. Yeah. And I've been pulled over twice for a breath test.
Yeah.
But haven't been drink driving.
Yeah.
And off you go. Yeah. There's a fallacy thing that I was reading about today. The absence failure.
Yeah.
Which...
I don't know about this one. Which one's this?
Oh, well, this is the... If you don't see someone doing something, are they actually doing work?
Yeah.
And so I don't see the police policing.
Yes. Are
But-
they actually doing police work?
And I bet you they're bloody preventing a hell of a lot of crime being out there and doing what they're doing. It's like the CFA, the fire brigades have a motto. Every time the fire truck goes out the door, they've failed.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the job of the firefighter is not to attend fires, it's to educate the public about how to prevent fires from occurring.
And I'm sure that the police don't like going out to jobs. I'm sure that the family violence unit doesn't like going out to stop family violence. I'm sure that the specialist teams don't like going out and stopping potential attacks. I'm sure that the general duties cop doesn't like turning up to a crime scene or, you know,
But I just think of all these.
accident.
But I just think, when I was listening to this is what I was finding frustrating. I was going, okay, so we've had these number of terrorist plots spoiled here in Australia.
Oh yeah, there was a big article about it.
And you read about like by the time they arrest them is they've started buying the material, they're putting it together. It's the intent is so bloody clear, and then they arrest them.
Yes.
And go bravo,
Amazing.
bravo. We need that.
Yeah.
We need that. Blue light discos,
Yeah, community funded, police run.
police
Yeah.
program to get into the communities to support the kids. Another fantastic program.
But they do. It's not just, again, it's not the police. You don't see, if you're not seeing the police work, it means you're probably in a safe place. You know, if you're not hearing sirens every day or this and that, it means that, you know, I'm sure certain suburbs of Melbourne have more police going to them than others.
Yeah, and the other really interesting thing is because then the later on they talk about abolish the police, yada yada yada, and I'm going, I remember 2 years ago working with someone on Christmas Eve who was telling me that they're going to commit suicide, right? And I got to the point where I was like, right, now I've got to inform the police, and it was thank God that we had the police because then they could put a phone trace on the individual, and then we could actually locate the individual. And through their network, because I'm in one part of Victoria, the person's the other part of Victoria, and completely lying to me where they are, they're able to send the police to them. Oh, very frustrating.
The cops are definitely not just there to beat the shit out of people.
No.
It's not the intent.
Well, we did see what happened with George Floyd, and that stuff needs to change. But
Of course it does. I'm not saying it isn't, but what they're saying here is that's all they do. And I guarantee you, there'd be a lot more psychopaths joining the police force if that's all that they could do. Right, let's keep going.
The kind of urbanisation that came with the development of capitalism, working class people being concentrated for the first time in really, really big towns and centres of industry, which obviously created a group of people that really scared the new capitalist ruling class because workers could organise collectively, get together, have meetings, and they had a huge amount of social power in their ability to shut down production. And so in many cases, the first police forces in, countries like Britain and the United States and big urban centres were kind of copied from the models of the slave patrols and the Irish police force and applied to their own local populations as a tool for social control. So you'll notice with all those examples, like one thing that they're not about is fighting crime.
Incorrect.
I think a lot of people have a conception that the police, the kind of origin of the police were in some detective agency where a group of people got together and started dusting for fingerprints or something like that. But really, it was about different techniques to repress and surveil potentially rebellious populations that wanted to fight back against conditions of exploitation.
Emma, do you want to add anything to that?
Everything. Everything was wrong.
if I could just take a photo of you, that's fucking hilarious.
Everything was just... No, the police don't... I can't even describe it. The police don't... It's like I said, the CFA.
Yeah.
Their thing is it's to educate the public in order not to commit crime. They're not there to suppress. They're only going to suppress you if you're committing a crime. Because there's this unwritten contract that you have once you're born and once you become an active member of society that you say, hey, I won't break the laws. And if I don't break the laws, I'll be able to retain the rights that I have. That's the trade-off. You know, where I can vote, I can not be on a sex offender register, I I can go visit my family. I can have a license. I can do all these things as long as I don't break the law. And he uses an example later, and I guarantee you know the one.
There was something, and I'm jumping the gun again, but I
Yeah.
just get so frustrated with listening to this. There was something to do with this group protesting the Victorian Socialists did something like, I think it was last year, where they sat down in the middle of near Flinders Street Station.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Right?
Oh, the climate change one.
Yeah, and they did
Extinction.
and they did that blockade. Now, me as a regular Joe, okay, yeah, I agree, climate change, yada yada yada. Let's do something. But how you're doing about that and pissing a hell of a lot of people off,
That's not how you win supporters.
I would be like, I'm trying to get somewhere. I'm
Yeah.
trying to work. I'm trying to pay my bills. And in my mind, I'd be like, police, arrest all these people and lock them up. Because you're pissing a hell of a lot of people
Find
off.
them. Or they've
Yeah.
done something wrong.
And then the same it was with I'll have to show you this clip as well, because
Please.
I found it 2 weeks ago. There was a mining conference last year.
I remember that. Yeah.
Mining conference. And there's a video of the Victorian Socialists, and they're talking about our strategy is to blockade. Now, I'm pretty sure that blocking people in a free country to attend an event, whether we have basically freedom of speech, is illegal.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I'm not a
if you're-
lawyer, but it sounds wrong.
But if you're going to block people and you're intending to block, I remember them getting upset about the police, and I'm going, no, that is a conference, and in that conference as well, I know of 2 people who've spent 15 bloody years working on capturing carbon dioxide from coal plants,
Yeah.
who were at that mining, who are doing more to solve the climate change pollution problem than any of those protesters.
You know what? I remember that, because I work around that where it was, and I saw it out the windows. And the big thing was that whole thing. I saw it on the news as well. The big thing was that was a mining conference about moving towards greener solutions.
Yeah.
And all of those people there were trying to find a greener solution.
Yeah. It's just we can't flip the switch to renewable energies
No,
tomorrow.
No, because you need to continue the energy.
Yeah.
To
Imagine
build the things.
if we didn't have energy.
Yeah.
There would be riots in the street.
Shall we keep going?
Yeah, all right. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that starting point of people weren't afraid of
Okay, she's the best speaker on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
crime or something, or I mean, the ruling class kind of was on one level, but there was not an equal appreciation of the need for police in the early 1800s when it was being established. It was resisted and hated by ordinary people and seen as a real imposition on their.
Again, I couldn't find any information about that.
I don't know where she's talking about or
Yeah, I think she said the 1800s about the police introduction and the creation and stuff like that. And she's saying that I guess the poorer people didn't like it as much. Again, I couldn't find any information on that.
See, you'll probably find some information up in Ballarat
Yeah.
because the gold mines,
Yeah.
and then the police was formed, and
Well,
I
I
don't know.
would say that the police was formed, even if someone got something stolen, having the police there to be able to go, that's their responsibility to retrieve it on your behalf and capture the person that, poor or rich, I'm sure the police would work for you because it's a government institution.
Their rights, and at the same time, it was something that was really campaigned for by particularly the wealthy merchant class, the slave owners in the American South, the merchants who became rich off the slave colonies in England and so on, factory owners, people like that who wanted order. And actually, someone who is a really celebrated bourgeois economist and philosopher is Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations. And the original title of The Wealth of Nations was actually a Lectures on the Police.
That's incorrect. That is incorrect. That is incorrect. Unless she can prove it otherwise, nowhere on earth has that ever said that. There's definitely a paper about the police that he's written before. But The Wealth of Nations was never called anything about the police because that's not what the document was about.
because he was part of a whole coterie of wealthy merchants and bourgeois economists who were arguing for a more, kind of violent approach to containing the working class at that time. And he said quite famously in that.
Actually, no, maybe she doesn't. Keep going.
Civil government, so far as it is instituted for the sanctity of property, is in reality instituted for the defence of the rich against the poor. And I think that kind of sums up some of the institutions that came into being at this time, both the police, but also prisons and the courts and so on.
Prisons have been around since the Roman times.
Yeah.
Since forever.
Forever and ever. What I actually struggled with is the flipping. They talking about US, then they're talking about England, and then they're talking about something else.
This is like when we talked to the flat Earth guy, and he kept sweeping between metric and imperial. Like, just stick with one. Fully, go with all one.
Yeah,
and then go similarly, and then go across.
Yeah,
would have made a lot.
And then the lack of like, if you're going to pull something out of a book, right?
Reference it,
give me a page number, say, hey, by the way, here's the book, page 25.
And you know what?
Blah, 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 blah.
I researched something like this. I pulled a lot of research on some stats later on. Put it in your link description. They did not do that. You know, you're trying to be like an educational podcast. I can't just take you on your word. Otherwise, we would have believed the flat earth guy.
So I think a good way of thinking about the police at this time is that they solved a series of problems that the capitalist system had created. There's an inherent contradiction in the system, which is that...
So from what you just said, the capitalistic system naturally developed over time by people. And it wasn't just developed in London. It was developed worldwide, basically. Like, in different forms, different levels. Capitalistic systems created crime.
Bull fucking shit. Capitalist systems prevent crime.
System, because it's based on competitive accumulation for profit, requires a stable, controlled, orderly system that operates almost like clockwork. You want the peaceful operation of markets, of factories, of transport, and so on. And even a minor disruption to that can cause serious economic damage.
And the reason why there's minor disruption to that is people protest.
Well, a bunch of things.
No, I take that back.
That could be one of them. But it's a whole bunch of things. It could be crime, any type of crime. If you murder the CFO or the CEO of a podcast like ours, then you stop that economic development.
That's right.
You know, you stop a whole bunch of things. But if you kill people or steal from people or whatever it is, that's still a crime. You know, if you're doing an illegal activity, even if, like, you know, I think marijuana should be legal. I think cocaine should be legal. But doesn't mean I should start just growing it. Because it's illegal.
Oh, God, I can't remember what she said.
It's just so much crap.
It is. In a capitalistic system, a business needs to earn profit. If they can't earn profit, then they're not going to exist.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why people work for someone is that they, they're giving up their time, generally. Yeah. They're getting money, and they're working for that organisation, which can employ them. They get the money, which they can then spend however they see fit to however they want to spend that money. Right? And one of the things is...
But you have the choice. In a capitalistic system, you have the choice to work wherever you want.
I'm all about the equal opportunity. But the whole one of the whole things is you have to build leverage.
Yeah.
When you're 18 and you get out of school, you basically don't have any leverage.
No.
You've got to get entry-level jobs.
Yeah.
You've got to build skills.
Yeah, I was payroll that I hated for a couple of years. You bloody
worked at Woolworths.
Oh, I worked at Coles back in the day.
Or whatever it was.
But it gave me customer service skills. It gave me ability to talk with employees, work in a group, health and safety stuff.
Yeah.
And then working in payroll, I learned a whole bunch of stuff, like communicating over the phone, via emails, legislation, policy, how to talk to,
and you develop more skills and you develop more leverage.
That's right. That's all you're doing.
And an 18-year-old doesn't have that.
No.
Maybe they go out and start a cafe, or they've got a business idea, or they see a gap or a need, and they build leverage very quickly.
Exactly.
But if you're going to work for someone in a system, but the capitalistic system is basically I see a problem,
Mm.
provided I've actually haven't sunk, a lot of capital into it that may or may not exist, but there's ways you can figure that out. But I see a problem, I try and solve this problem, and I try and make other people's lives better.
And if I'm successful in solving the problem, other people want to buy that solution.
Yeah.
And I sell it. And eventually, you have so much business, you have to hire other people to work for you to help sell that solution to
And a lot of
others.
entrepreneurs fucking fail and fail
Oh, yeah.
and fail and lose a lot of fucking money, and then maybe one day they'll hit the jackpot.
There's only... You know what? You only hear about the successful people. For every one successful person, there's 10,000 failures. And that person who succeeded probably failed 10 times. So you're hearing the 0.1%, or like they're saying now, that 1% of people that are the crib of the crop, because they're the people that are dedicated enough to put in the hours, the effort, the time, lose, slightly win, lose a lot, win a bit, and build up a business, an idea, whatever it is, into something that society deemed valuable. I mean, Microsoft, like Apple or Microsoft products, 200 years ago would have seemed stupid.
Yep.
But at the time that they became successful, like the iPad or the
But
the
just
iPhone,
look at Apple. Apple. Steve Jobs got kicked out by his board.
yeah,
Then they brought him back. I think they had something like 60 days of money left before they had to turn a profit.
yeah,
And Steve Jobs worked his ass off.
yeah.
He was an interesting conversation I had with someone else. I said, someone said, "Oh, what do you think of Steve Jobs?" And I said, it's the same as what I think of Jeff Bezos from Amazon,
Yeah.
or Bill Gates and Microsoft. If you're in a senior management team,
Yeah.
you're there to fucking work.
Oh yeah.
You're not there to go, I work 9 till 5.
No, you're on 24
The
hours
reason
a
why
day.
you work for that person is you believe in their mission, and you're fucking working all the fucking time.
And you got to remember, like,
But if you're
a guy like, let's go back to Jeff Bezos. His idea was, I'm going to sell
books,
online.
yeah,
And he would have bunches of books in his garage and he would just mail them out.
yeah.
And that was Amazon.
Yeah, that was Amazon. And in fact, they got a bit busy, and he goes, he was saying to his workmate, we've got to get knee pads. And his workmate was saying, no, we need a packing table.
Yeah.
So Jeff Bezos was on the floor packing those books.
Yeah. And as time goes on, the busier he got, the more help he could get, the more people could employ,
Yeah.
the more skills.
Amazon was actually at a point back in 1999, 2000, its share price reduced dramatically, and Wall Street was going, this business is not profitable. This business is going to fall. And Jeff goes, no. We just had to get past. We just had to. People were buying more and more products. We just hadn't got past our fixed costs.
Yeah.
We just had to. We were spending all this money on fixed costs, but you could see our volume were increasing. Like we were going to get over that point, and then we were going to become profitable.
Yeah. It seems like
And he kept reinvesting that capital.
they just, I think that, rich people, lots of people have old money, I'll give you that. But there's lots of new ventures right now that people came from absolutely no money to having money now through this capitalistic idea that they can develop something. But the police are just there to keep law and order.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, because you can still go to jail.
That's right. You could be
can
Jeffrey Epstein.
It could be Jeffrey Epstein. Well,
That it created actually the most unruly and kind of mass kind of exploited class in all of history, the working class, a really rambunctious and
they keep saying this. The working class is the lowest class. And they're different from the upper class. But they never describe what the difference is. Like they talk about how much income or how much money they have. But then they go...
Henry Ford, right? Henry
Yeah.
Ford would probably be considered the upper class when he built Ford and
But it came from nothing.
had all those people working for him. But exactly, he came from nothing and built that. He and to me this is going
Huge anti-Semite. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But-
it's actually the first Ford was used to run over Jews.
I
That's
did
it,
not
no.
know. Oh, okay, all right. He's pulling your leg, people. He's pulling your leg.
I have to keep some jokes in the show.
But he built that, and anyone else who has that dream and wants to work for it can build it.
Yeah. Yep.
radically democratic class that from very early on organised massive demonstrations, strikes, protests and so on. So this is what the ruling class was dealing with in the 1800s and they didn't actually have anything to solve it at that time. There wasn't a police force, like you said at the start, Roz.
All right,
this
pause.
was not something that existed.
Workers at Ford, for instance, I don't know, making this up, could protest against Henry, and they probably did,
I'm sure
about
they
their
did.
working conditions. That's fair enough. Like, they can do that. That's enterprise agreements and bargaining agreements, and we
And that's something that had to develop over
Yeah.
time. But Henry Ford was
But
like
that's not really the...
But wait a minute, Henry Ford was like one of the first people. He's a really interesting dude. He was like the first guy to go, oh, I'd rather people go home and sleep. I'd rather them work 8 hours. Because if they work 8 hours today, they can comfortably work 8 hours tomorrow. But if they work 12 hours today, they can't comfortably work 12 hours tomorrow. I'd rather them go home. He was very revolutionary about finding the exact balance between how many hours you should work at work and get the best out of your employees.
Yeah.
And in turn, the employees give the best back to you because they're happy.
And they're getting money, which they can then spend
Spend.
however they want.
Exactly right.
Existed before. There was a military that you could have come in, ride in with sabers and murder everyone and have massacres. This was not a very
Repetition.
useful thing when you have
Repetition.
constant rebellions from below, because it would create martyrs. You would have, often it would actually boost the cause of those rebellions. And then you had a pretty defunct and ineffectual kind of series of Night's Watchmen and people who were basically appointed by lottery to, have a part-time job of kind of going around and trying to contain disorder. So this is totally unacceptable to the capitalist class after a while. What they needed was
Why? We have neighborhood watches. Most, I would say, rich people wouldn't mind a neighborhood watch. They might not want to be on it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that if someone goes, hey, we're making a neighborhood watch, they'd be like, that sounds good to me. I'll give you some money for it to get it going.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
I couldn't follow the point here.
No.
uniformed, waged police force that could go amongst the population, spy on them, survey them, and keep them in line. One of the early, if I can
How do
go
we
on.
know that? How do
She's
we
a
know?
mind. I'm always amazed. Like, I don't know how. Maybe I need to become a socialist because then I can get the ability to read minds of people in the past.
Yeah.
Must be a superpower. I still don't get it. Like, every police force or every police, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, just whatever police unit, whatever the police, I could not find one that was like anything that they're talking about that was privately funded. All of these are government institutions.
A bit longer. One of the early examples of this that I think is really telling is of the police on the River Thames, which was actually the first police force before the
Okay, this is my favourite story.
the Metropolitan Police in England. So this was in 1798, and a wealthy merchant named Patrick Calhoun introduced them. He'd been campaigning for years to other merchants, managed to get a police force of 50 uniformed, salaried police officers. And their first job was actually to police the dock workers on the River Thames, who commonly just took, bags of sugar and bags of tobacco and stuff that they had helped unload off the ships. They saw that as part of their wage. This is just unacceptable to the capitalist class and the merchants. And so they actually had this police force that its main job was to pay wages to the workers and then to enforce an anti-theft dress code. So they were like the pocket police. They would go around and pat down workers as they left and so on. And to give you a sense of how
All right, isn't that what the police is meant to do? Which is, Church, I am this merchant. Come work on the wharf with me.
Sure.
And I will pay you a gold coin every week.
That's
And
fantastic.
you got to take these products that I've paid for and I've taken the risk to bring over here, and I still need to sell because I haven't made a profit yet.
No.
And I need you to help unpack that and load that onto the horse and the carts, which is going to take it off to the market.
Yeah, sure. So you're going to pay me a gold coin. Well, I'm going to take, without telling you, I'm going to take a pack of these tobacco every week.
But that's not part of our agreement.
I don't care. I'm still doing it.
Well, I'm going to fire you. Because in modern day work, that's fraud. And you're out.
Oh, it is it? You know what you should do? Says the third person.
Yeah.
You should get people who enforce the law to work for you. That sounds like a good idea. So these people were stopping people committing crimes. That wasn't downtrodden the workforce. That was keeping law and order.
Mm-hmm.
That's stealing.
Yeah, they were stealing.
How is that a good thing?
Like unacceptable this was to the working class at the time. Within a year, 6,000 workers,
Because
dock
they were
workers and their
stealing.
families had attempted to burn down that police station.
I'm sorry. They were stealing. Of course, it's unacceptable if the police is starting to pat them down.
Yes.
Because they're not getting away with what they could get away with.
No. If you go into your work, let's just say you work at McDonald's, and they go, hey, we'll pay you, I don't know, $20 an hour, and your job is to do this. And then you go, yeah, great. And after work's done, I'm cooking up 500 Big Macs every week, and I'm taking those home. I'm not paying for them. It's like, no, you can't do that. If you do that, we'll arrest you. No, you're downtroddening the workers. No, you're stealing.
You're stealing.
This is such a I don't know why she brings this up as a positive outlook on why we should defund the police. This is the worst thing I've ever heard. This is like, it's not even corporate big wig this and that, like killing people. It's like, no, a bunch of people were stealing, and now they don't have jobs because they were stealing.
Yeah.
Balloon inside. So this was a really contested thing for many years, and it's why it took them 30 years after that to actually introduce the Metropolitan Police.
I mean, one other funny thing about the night watchmen was that mostly they were seen as pretty inefficient because they were drunk a lot of the time, because they just were working on their own and they just wandered around and didn't really fancy doing much, because why would they?
So they could get away with things.
Whereas the police
keep
become,
stealing
as a
things.
unit of people, I think, disciplined to patrol in a very specific way. And actually, Marx and Engels, they're working on their analysis of capitalism in this period in the mid 1800s, and looking at particularly the experiences of workers in Britain, but also internationally, and thinking about how the police, as this new institution that hasn't been seen before capitalism, is actually there really as a tool of the ruling class to help exploit these workers who are having this experience for the first time of being forced into this exploitative relationship.
What? Didn't we just say they were stealing?
They just said they were stealing. She said it. It's like they put in anti-theft people, which were these new police officers. Look, what she said, some of those were words. I like the fact we're reviewing this show. We're not only reviewing the content, but we're bold enough to review their ability to talk. An ability to form coherent sentences.
Look, if I was putting a podcast like this together,
Yeah.
I would be speaking to the other presenters,
Yeah.
and I would be thinking about a coherent, because she's talking about the wharf or something,
Yeah.
and then they've gone back to the night watchman.
No.
I would go, what's a logical order that we could present these
Dates,
events?
times. If we're doing the history of something,
Yeah.
It's very like,
First, I'll talk about this, then I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about
Yeah.
X, then we'll hand it back over
it's like
to
a
here.
you know, what?
Yeah.
This reminds me of there's two types of documentaries. One that are nice, easy, chronological. This is what happened, and then this is what happened, and that's how we are today. Or they go, this is how we are today. How did we get here? And then they go through the history. This is more like the Ancient Aliens way, where they go, it's like 200 years ago, these guys saw a thing in the sky, but 15,000 years ago, then they saw these in the ancient ruins. And there's no coherent link.
But they could be
But they
connected.
could be connected!
With the ruling class. And so it's not surprising, really, when people have been driven off their land into these urban areas, forced to work, worked in appalling conditions for, a pittance of a wage, that they rebel and they resist. And then the ruling class think, oh, we've got to stop them from doing this. And that's sort of really one of the key things.
Where's that crossover period where you become a wealthy merchant, a poor merchant to wealthy merchant to ruling class? Like, where do they draw that line? Like, obviously in their head they have like a thing that all rich people are bad. Like, is that what you're getting out of this?
Yeah, that's every time. The amount of times I listen to said capitalism, they're trying to frame capitalism as bad, and I'm going, it's capitalism is what
it's a
keeps
mechanism.
you is what keeps you warm at night. Is the reason we and the homelessness issue is something we need to address, right? But it's because of capitalism we have like 95% of the population in a house.
Yeah.
And in a warm bed. And can buy food.
Or the fact that we have an abundance of food.
Yes, the abundance that we have in society today.
Logistics that we have right now to deliver goods across the world.
And it actually means that we can now enter more of the service industry.
Which is why we're currently in urbanized cities, because the work previously was in big lots of land for farming.
Yeah, and then it moved
The average person doesn't have to do that anymore. The average person can enter the service industry. That's why more people can go off and learn an instrument or learn a second language or, play video games.
Or travel.
Because if you were 200 years ago and we didn't change this, ability to move.
I'd much rather be a poor person today than a poor person 200 years ago. I'd much rather be a poor person today than a wealthy person 200 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, you'd be fucked.
Yeah.
Because there's no heating, there's no ice, there's no recorded music, there's no... All these little luxuries that we have now are things of pure imagination 200 years ago. Get going.
Things that the police really were about, trying to enable as much exploitation as possible. So if it's not about fighting crime, I mean, we've kind of talked about this a bit, but
wasn't it like they just said they used to stop people from thieving from ships? Isn't that crime? Isn't that about fighting crime?
That is about fighting crime.
I guess a question that comes up in terms of who the police are is, if they're workers, then does that make them part of the working class? Because they're working for a wage as well.
Okay, this is there's so many of my favorite bits, but this is a bit where I think they start to realize that they should have done more research.
Like, even if their role is to sort of do some of this kind of patrolling work for the ruling class, they're still essentially workers. Is that something you want to say something about, Luca?
Yeah, I think that's it's not just an interesting analytical question in terms of what class position do police cops occupy, but it's an important question that virtually any significant kind of social movement has to come up against at some point, because anytime people collectively get together and try to change something dramatically about society, it's inevitable that they're going to come up against the armed force of the state, which exists to kind of enforce that status quo. And we can obviously see that right now as we speak with the mass protests in response to George Floyd's murder in the United States and across the world. And yeah, I guess the key kind of debate is whether the police are part of the working class, as you mentioned.
It only took him 30 seconds to get there, but we're finally going to find an answer.
One of the things is just okay, this is my 2 cents
Please.
on George Floyd and the policing situation. And I don't know too much, but I look at this and go, there's clearly a need to retrain these police officers. That is a potential causal factor. The fact that officer, I think, was on him for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, where I'm going, you should have been able to restrain
There should
and
have been
handcuff,
other actions occur.
and
Other
other
actions
things should have been able to happen. So to me, this sounds like a training issue. And then reading a little bit further, going, well, a lot of the police come from the military,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So
true.
not all of them, but a lot of them come from the military. And there's that sort of military thing where we're going, well, part of the job needs to be de-escalating. Maybe the best thing might have been to call an Uber rather than, talk to that person and go, right, we're going to get you in a taxi or an Uber and we're going to send you home.
See, I think we both.
And to me that goes, all right, why did that police officer do that? Were they just an asshole?
Well, I think we
Or
both looked
is
at
it a
this-
training?
I
Is
think
it
we, I think we
training
both,
issue?
Very interesting. I think we both looked at this in the same way, because while it was a white man kneeling on the neck of a black man, I looked at this I didn't look at this as a racial issue, because the biggest thing I thought about with this was that I wasn't in the police officer's head when it happened, and there's no way in hell that I could ever say he did this because he was a black man and he would have acted differently if it was a white man.
Yeah, I've got no idea. I can't answer that.
And because of that reason, I go, okay, I can't look at this as a racial issue. I have to look at, and like you said, the causal actions. Why did what in his training made him act in the way that he did? And why did the other police officers see that action was correct? Because I'm sure that if you do something stupid at work, you might go, stop doing that, do something else. Or, But all of those people thought what he was doing was correct.
I want to go. I'm going to take you in a different pathway.
Please.
So before the financial crisis in 2008, there was a period of time where a lot of blacks in America couldn't actually get loans.
Yeah.
So a lot of whites were getting loans. So back 2000-ish.
Yeah.
But a lot of black people couldn't get loans. And the government went, well, there's a potential racial issue here. Right. Now, the bankers would have said something along the lines of, no, these people don't qualify. This person that's come to me doesn't qualify for a loan. So, okay, there's obviously something's happening there. If more white people are getting loans from the banks, and a lot of black people aren't getting loans from the banks, even though the bankers aren't being racist because they're not qualifying, there's something's gone on there. And then when you look at it, you go, okay, well, the opportunities that largely black communities have is less than the opportunities that the white communities, and there's a number of reasons why that's happened. But then you also look at it, poorer communities in America mean that those communities pay less tax, which means there's less money for the school system, right? Whereas, we've got a lot of the whites in America where they are more wealthier, so they pay more tax, so there's more money for the school system. So already there, from an educational point of view, there's inequity in the funding of schools.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't happen in Australia. Australia's a little bit
Very
different in far as, here's the government money, your school, per student, you get paid this, right? It's much different than that. And to me, that goes, okay, well, the issue there then it's not a banking issue.
No.
It's an opportunity issue where government has to then work on the policies and help correct that.
Again, I looked at this as not a racial issue. I looked at this as what's the underlying issue causing the racism.
Or causes.
Yeah.
Causes. Which to me, I just went, 8 minutes of what he was doing is really bad training, or that cop is an asshole.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, I don't know if it's in his head if he was a racist, because I was not in his head, and I didn't know the guy from a bar of soap. And I'm sure that 99.99% of the people in the world also don't know him from a bar of soap.
So I would rather want to know.
And you know what? In 5 weeks, I bet you couldn't pick him up in a lineup.
Yeah. So I'd much rather want to know what their training system's like.
Exactly.
And why they trained that way. How do we overcome that potential training?
Let's have a look at
it. Most cops do not own factories. They work for a wage. So superficially, they can seem to be quite similar to other workers. They're even branched under emergency services, like, for instance, firefighters who socialists are very supportive when they organise and take action. But I don't think, for Marxists, we don't understand the class position of different groups of people in society just by, how they receive their remuneration, how they're paid, whether they work for a wage. It's about your relationship to the rest of society and how production is organised. And the thing about the police force is that everything about their existence pits them against the working class as a whole. So the police exist to, for instance, police picket lines when workers try to organise industrial action to strike for better wages and conditions. The force that is sent down to break up those picket lines and resume business as usual is the police. They exist to enforce all sorts of social control on ordinary people, from, fining and imprisoning people for homelessness and sleeping on the streets, to targeting minority sections of the working class who are oppressed. And particularly they exist to police and respond to protests, riots, any type of uprising where people collectively, working class people, get a sense of their agency and power by taking on the government, corporations, symbols of authority. So everything that the police do in their day-to-day life ranges them against ordinary working class people. And it means...
Yeah, I think like the police should really let all them pedophiles go, because obviously they're downtrodden the working class of the pedophiles. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh, the downtrodden criminal class, that's selling meth to kids, or selling. Like, are you fuck? What the fuck are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That's not real.
Or the picket.
You're looking at like.
Or the picket lines where I'm going, I'm not... prove me wrong. Feel free to prove me wrong. More than happy. But I'm not aware of any picket lines where police have arrested people unless that picket line has stopped other people who want to work to get into that factory.
Or on the other way around, they keep the streets clear from cars so they can march up to Parliament.
Yeah.
That's something that happens on a very regular basis, and without them, I'm sure lots of cars would be hitting lots of protesters.
And I've seen a number of organised protests where they work with the police who clear the path for them.
They do the job, and they say, "Look, Yarra trams, you can't do it." And that way, everyone gets warning. Everyone can plan their day around it, rather than just stopping things in the middle of the street.
Mm-hmm.
Or you know what? That guy that drove down Burke Street, the police stopped him.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. That person may have been downtrodden, this and that, but he was killing a lot of people. I'm sort of glad that the police did their job.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, just because they earn a wage doesn't mean that... Like, they earn a wage... Like, doesn't mean... Just because they work for... That means every government worker and everyone that works for Amazon is part of the elite, by their logic. Because they work for people to oppress others. Well, if you're a packer at Amazon, you're oppressing others because Jeff Bezos has all this power.
Mm.
That doesn't make... What the... Where...
How long have we been going for?
An hour and 20.
All right, I think we're done.
We're done?
We're done.
We've got through 14 minutes and 50 seconds of this episode, people. That's how much...
Part 2, there's a clear... they do a little music thing. And
Yeah. But do you want to get to that?
Well, I'm busting to go to the
Okay, well, you know what? Let's... Do you want to go to the toilet and finish it, then do that?
As long as this part's taken out.
We'll take this bit
All
out.
right.
Yeah.
Very
This is
good.
how you do it. All right, we're back. Let's keep going. Let's get to that.
Due to great editing, they wouldn't have known that we paused.
That's why I did the clapping.
Yeah.
I think that they're thoroughly, when struggles emerge, come down on the side of the ruling class and the state. And it's important to look at the history of that.
So the police come down on the side of the ruling class. Let's put that to a side for a second. And the state. Yes, they work for the state. I hope that they come...
of recent movements, everything from Occupy Wall Street and the Occupy movements across the world in 2011, where there was a debate about, the slogan of the movement was "We're the 99%," and the question was raised, well, aren't police part of the 99% too? They're not the super rich. Can we win them over? Through to the kind of Extinction Rebellion movement last year, where a lot of people argued that we could win our demands by singing hymns to the cops and attempting to morally win them to the argument that they have something to win out of a healthier planet. Through to, I guess the movement today. I think it's important to say that the police aren't part of the working class because there's no serious historical precedent for any significant section of the police force being won over to working class struggle and popular protest. And if our side is not prepared for the fact that they're actually a reactionary obstacle to achieving what we need, then we're less prepared to confront the question of state repression as it comes up. So one way this is actually coming up in a positive way today, I think, in the United States, is there's now pressure on the union movement in the United States to exclude the police union from all of their institutions. Now, a police union is another thing that can sound like, oh, well, you know.
What? Remove the police? What? Can you, Church, you're really good at explaining things to me. Explain this to me.
I actually had to listen to this part I've listened to this podcast like a couple of times just to make sure I understood. I think what he was saying was that the police, what they tried to do during all those protests was to get the police on their side and say, hey, all the things that we're fighting for benefit you too. Like the climate thing and this and that. But what they're realizing is because the police work for the state and the rich, they're actually not on their side.
But the police work for the state today. Historically, okay, maybe they work for the rich. I haven't read that, so maybe
I couldn't find that either.
Maybe willing to concede that. But today,
yes,
since
the introduction of the police in Australia,
and around the world, they work for the state.
Yes,
not the rich.
No, because they uphold the law set by the state. And the federal government.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Yeah, that's what I understand. What he's saying, I don't think is quite right. I think he's morally, and I don't think he's got it right in his head yet, where he thinks the police sort of sit within his hierarchy of classifications.
Because that might have been, and I would have accepted something like in 1800 to about 1920. Yeah. It was mainly the rich, but then this thing happened, and it moved over to the state. Okay, I would get that, but they're very sneaky because he's throwing in the rich, like it's a bad thing to be rich.
It's not. It's just means you're good at your job.
When you've got money, it solves your money problems. It doesn't solve any other problems you have. It just solves your money problems.
No.
And everyone can be rich.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Maybe if the cops band together, they could show a bit more solidarity and have some...
Oh, cops shouldn't be part of the union. Or shouldn't be part of the emergency services union. But they are an emergency service. As you call them...
And they have a union that they can belong to.
Yeah. So when you call the police because, you know, your house is being burgled, or there's a gunman, or there's someone driving down Burke Street, they can attend on your behalf with the powers that we want people, additional powers that we give to people to stop the crime. But they shouldn't be a part of union discussions.
Because everything that police do is so reactionary and about kind of...
Yeah. Yes and no.
They have a proactive side and they have a reactionary side.
Yeah. I mean, they can't go... It's not like Minority Report, where they go, we know that you're going to commit a crime. We're going to arrest you now. You commit the crime, and then they go, well, you've committed the crime now, we're going to arrest you. But then they go, you know what, we're going to go into some counter-terrorism intelligence and potentially stop a crime before it happens. Or they go to a person's house who may have already been beaten once by their significant other, and maybe go, you know what, maybe we'll take that significant other out of the house so it doesn't happen again.
Intervening in favour of the status quo. Police unions, I think, are reactionary institutions as well. You can see that with the head of the police union in Minneapolis, where this all started, Bob Kroll, is one of the country's most prominent Trump supporters, through to the police unions in France, which right as we speak are organising mass protests. The police...
What was that? So there was something, he just wanted to say he was a Trump supporter. Yeah. But it didn't mean anything.
And then moved on to France.
I
was waiting to finish the point about...
Finish your point,
Yeah.
For the right to use chokeholds on people that they detain. They're organising protests for the right to brutalise other protesters. So every time the police
No, okay. I remember those French things. It wasn't just about brutalizing protesters. It was just the ability to use the chokehold going forward. Because, maybe one day they might want to, find a pedophile or, someone who's beating up women or children or a terrorist. And they might go, you know what? Maybe a chokehold might be the best way. And they just want to have that option. I mean, it's not like they're waterboarding them.
Yeah.
nice. They usually push for things that are about giving themselves more power to brutalize people, more power to repress crowds.
But it's power they're asking to protect, because they're people. They're not robots. They're trying to protect themselves.
And
like,
they
want to go home.
ask for that power, and then the politicians that we've elected
Yes.
either
Say
pass
yes or
the
no.
law or don't pass the law.
And, because at the end of the day, they're just people.
Yeah.
They're going out there, putting themselves, like a firefighter, put themselves on the line to protect property, people, pets, whatever it is. They put themselves in as the person who tries to help with that. Help everybody. And maybe they do need more powers to do that. But the risk is, like, we pay them obviously, but the risk is they could die on the job.
Yeah.
Or get severely injured.
They've got a higher risk.
They've got a really high risk. Lots of mental health issues. The danger's there. What they're trading off is they're just trying to give themselves a bit more power to make sure that doesn't happen.
So I think it's important to say that, firstly, that we don't think that we can actually win the police to our side in struggles, and we want to treat them as our enemy. And secondly, that police unions and their organisations are not a legitimate part of the workers' movement and the left, and they should be excluded from all the institutions.
There you go. Not part. They don't want them part of the left.
I just don't know what his point is.
We organise in.
Yeah, I mean, in Australia, we're probably most familiar with the Police Federation when they have their leaders come onto the TV and defend the cops from killing Aboriginal people in custody and so on. Like, that's basically what the police union is there for, is to come out and say, well, it was completely defensible, whatever.
No, that's not what the police union do. The police union fight on the behalf of the police for better wages, better. It's like any union. They don't come out and defend the police. They just give them better. They just give them the benefits that they deserve.
There was the police officer who shot the Aboriginal in Northern Territory, I think it was.
Okay.
Last year, ongoing case. So it's still before the courts. But the union got on, and because his police officer was a union member,
they all are,
and said that we're supporting the police officer, which is the union's
job. Yeah.
Now he's got to go through a court procedure.
Yeah.
So the courts will deal with it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's almost like your boss calls you in, tells you to do something, and you have your union that says, no, he might have done the wrong thing, but let's put it in context, or we're here to support you. Like, that's why you pay those.
Yeah.
That's why.
But again, a lot of police join the unions
for better wages,
for better health care, for
better conditions,
better conditions, just in general. Like, we want to upgrade,
our cars,
our
police station,
because we found all this is unsafe. We found this is unsafe for our working conditions. We want better bulletproof vests, because these ones are shit. And the union pushes for it, just like WorkSafe do, at a building site. Or the builders union go, no, everyone needs to wear hard hats. And as a business, you need to supply them. And boots, and this and that, and high quality tools, or whatever it is. Or these safety precautions. That's what the union does, but in a policing world.
Despicable racist crime that they carried out that week, And in America as well, I think the police union also play a very political role that is probably less well known.
Okay, if you think, and you're discussing this as fact, don't use it as an example.
Get the evidence.
that they donate to particular political candidates,
Prove it.
campaigns and so on, and sort of wield a bit of...
Wait a sec, an individual police officer is legally allowed to donate to any political campaign that they see fit. Like a police station can't, I don't think. I don't know.
I don't believe a police station or I think a union could.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, the other unions can in Australia.
Yeah, but I don't believe a
station
station receiving government funds can.
No,
No.
that's embezzlement. But if you're into wage and you're an individual, you can absolutely fund whoever you want.
And particularly, I think, Democrats are often under pressure from the police union and are concerned with the police union kind of condemning them for not caring about law and order and all of that kind of crap.
Just all that kind of crap, law and order.
But yeah, they just literally play only a reactionary role, and they should not be part of any trade union movement, and they should not be part of Trades Hall in Victoria for that matter. It should be a demand of all of us to kick them out of those organisations.
Fucking hell, that was painful.
Well,
I think we're gonna leave it there.
yeah. If they want to come on the podcast, more than happy to have them.
Yeah, I want to discuss them with them. Let's keep them on track and just talk about one little topic at a time. But I want to do more of this.
Oh, my
I
God.
could dissect these guys and all these ideas for ages. And this was like the least interesting part of the show for me. The next bit
Yeah, the next bit.
is more insane.
Well, this is part A. Part 1. I don't know.
I don't even know.
Am I wrapping it up?
You can wrap it up.
All right. I'll wrap it up. Rant topics, SBS on demand. I mean, Church has for those that don't know, he has a little printout paper each week just to
keep the show on track.
Just to keep the show, well, more or less to probably keep me on track. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Ladies and gentlemen, for all your wanking needs, make sure you follow us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, the Gram, Twitter, where you can get those tweets, and Facebook. And if you would like to send hate mail, probably if you're a Victorian socialist or socialist, you probably didn't like this podcast if you got it to the end. So feel free to send us some hate mail, a death threat, or a rant. Record it on your phone and email it to us at weonlydo1takepodcast@gmail.com. That's it. I'm out. Done. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. And we will see you next Thursday.
Oh, yeah, we will. That's not on the paper.
That's just my sign. It's like Rove. It's like Rove McManus. Say hello to your mum for me. Actually, do you want to hear this clip? Other clip I put together.
One of the key.
It's just the rest of the the rest of the flubs.
And particularly the two
Yeah, I mean, in Australia, we're probably most familiar with the Police Federation when they have their realistic but like negative Emma.
You can because you can it went yeah.
I remember preparing for a and that just melt it. So it, this idea